So all you have the last two games is Patrick Mahomes with a howitzer hanging off his right shoulder, and Joe Flacco with a howitzer hanging off his right shoulder. It's safe to say these two quarterbacks are going to test the Bengals with that deep ball. I mean, they throw it as well as anybody in the National Football League. I mean, do you think the Bengals have to stay away from playing man? I mean, they just got beaten in man situations. They get beaten one-on-one. Do you think they have to play like a higher percentage of zone and make them at least multiple plays down the field instead of these huge chunks?
I hope so. I mean, I think that you look at the Steelers game and man, I mean, why would we be in man-to-man on 3rd and 14? I don't. I mean, look, and Louis is a fantastic coach. I know that.
Yep.
The proof's in the pudding. But I mean, just because you're a fantastic coach, I mean, you can't be questioned about some of the calls that you make. I coach high school football. I question my defense coordinator because sometimes he makes bad calls, and
Sure.
It's just part of it. And so, but those are things you have to learn from. And I think that this game they are going to have to see in a lot more zone. But let's face it. You play zone. The good quarterbacks find those areas. They find it. But I think that in order to keep everyone in front of you, you have to play that way. It's unfortunate. It's not the play where you want to go in and say, let's make sure they don't throw it over our head. But it's gotten to the point now that the season has been so long. We've seen so many deep balls that have been completed. That at some point we got to say, hey, if that's what we got to do to take it away, we have to do what we have to do. It's unfortunate, but when you got two rookies back there, you got a corner who's not quite 100%, and you got another safety who's young in Dax Hill. I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen the pass coverage as mediocre as we've seen it with these guys this year.
So Travis Kelce has got one touchdown catch in 8 games. Everybody's like, he's disappeared. Where's Travis Kelce? And Mahomes has had, a bunch of interceptions this year. They're struggling. They're looking more human, offensively. And they give up 2 turnover scores in 7 seconds. I mean, they give up a fumble, Mahomes, and his running back are messing up a little handoff there. And then Mahomes throws a pick 6, 7 seconds apart. I mean, Kansas City's defense doesn't give up an offensive touchdown. They lose the football game. So I'm thinking that the Bengals, Kansas City, they're saying, all right, we've lost 3 in a row. This is a get-right game. I mean, the Bengals are going to face Kansas City's best. They can't go in there thinking, the Kansas City Chiefs, they just don't have it this year. Kansas City Chiefs are capable of rising up. There's no question.
We know that the way they played the last several weeks, at some point they're going to play. They're looking for a game to get themselves on track. Yeah. Clearly, they played a division game against the Raiders. They didn't get it back on track. I mean, they need these last 2 games to get themselves ready for the playoffs. They look nothing like the team that won the Super Bowl last year, particularly the last couple of weeks, and particularly yesterday. So just like the Steelers came in when we played them several weeks ago, came in looking. Steelers offense hadn't scored 400, hadn't had 400 yards all season in 58 games. They come in, they get the 400 yards. They do exactly what they need to do against us. We come back this week against Steelers, same way. Steelers, they still been struggling moving the ball. They lost 3 straight. Come in, what happens? They seem to right it. Teams seem to right the ship when they play against us. This game against Kansas City, just like what you said, Kansas City is going to be looking to try to see if they get Travis Kelce involved in the game. We know that. He's looking to get himself back on track. One touchdown in 8 games. Oh, they're going to try to see if they can find him and feed him once they get that ball down in the red zone. We know that. Pat Mahomes playing horribly. They're going to try to call a game plan that allows him to get himself back on track. And so the Bengals are going to be up against a great test this week. Let's face it. Nobody thought the Raiders would beat them.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, the Bengals just have to show up and play. It's going to be a tough outing, but let's face it. Every game you play in this league, Dave, there's no one giving people games. You go out and if you play well enough, you play hard enough, you take the game away. But no one's just going to say, oh, because we know you're sore, we know you're nicked up, you got all these players out. Kansas City saying we're trying to still win the Super Bowl, and the only way that's going to happen is we get into the playoffs and get in there with some momentum going. And so here's a game that they can sort of get themselves back going against a team that they got to know is emotionally beat up a little bit. I know we got a fan base that's emotionally beat up. And the hope is that the Bengals can show up and say, hey, man, let's not worry about what happened last game. We got to go out there and turn it loose and still play. I've appreciated the fact, Dave, that with this team, when Joe Burrow got hurt, there was a lot of talk that this thing was about to go belly up.
Yep.
No one was confident that it was going to turn out the way it did. And
No
quite
doubt.
frankly, they've done better than we thought.
For real.
And I think that's what it comes down to. Can they get back to doing that again? They got 2 weeks to finish the season out and show the fan base and everyone else that they got some heart and they don't just go and lay down. Because in the 5 weeks that Jake Brown has been playing, that's what we've seen. Teams got heart. Teams that they don't lay down for anyone. And then they go into a game against a division opponent that's a hated division opponent, and we just lay the egg. So 2 weeks to get it back on track, and we'll see how the young guys do.
Yep, and you know how it is, ET. You played great football for a long time. It's like you don't want one negative performance to turn into 2 or 3. It's
That's
like,
right.
okay, watch it, learn from it, but then put it away, man. Compartmentalize it and move on. And don't let it linger, man. Don't carry it with you. Just forget about it. And those things happen. They happen to great players. Just move on and lay your cards out on the table the next time. I just think that the Kansas City Chiefs. I have a feeling. And I remember I've talked about this many times. When Paul Brown was our head coach my first couple of years, this one time we were struggling a little bit. He gets up on the board and he goes, "All right, man, here's our run game. 3 plays. Here's our pass game. 4 plays." We had 7 plays. He goes, we're going to run it from a lot of different formations and looks, but we're going to feature these 7 plays until you show me that you can handle more, against all the defenses that we're seeing.
Right.
And he simplified, and he said, in my opinion, these are the things we do best right now, these handful of plays, and we're going to do them over and over. And we won like 3 or 4 in a row, and we're doing it, giving them all different looks and stuff, but we're hammering them the same way. And I'm thinking, don't overthink stuff, man. Football's not that. And I have a feeling that Andy Reid might just say, all these gadget gimmicks, motion, let's just line up and let's just start playing football. I think they're going to melt it down and get back to, more fundamental football. I believe that.
Yeah, I heard an analyst say earlier today that Kansas City, you're already pretty, and then you want to go throw on all this makeup. You know what I'm saying? And it's right. Why would you want to go putting on all this extra makeup when you're already pretty? So what we think they're going to do is just like what you said. They're going to dial it back, take a little bit of that makeup off, and they're going to go out there with more of a natural beauty and a natural look. And what's going to happen? You're going to see them sort of get it back into some kind of little flow. Now, I hope that flow happens next week and not this week against the Bengals. But you got to believe that this is the week that they're going to scale things back a little bit, because it looks like they're just trying to do too many things and not doing the things that they do well consistently. And so we have to expect that. And I think that's the way the game's going to go down. Now, when they do that, can the Bengals just say, look, we can do the same thing defensively? We can just go back to just playing basic football. I think that when they were playing their best, even when they beat the Kansas City Chiefs over the last several years, they beat them because they were doing basic things and not because they were doing anything extravagant. So if it comes down to Louis playing his basic and Kansas City playing their basic, this ought to be a good football game. It shouldn't be a game that the Kansas City Chiefs should be able to run away with. And if the Bengals just keep it down to a 1-possession game going into the fourth quarter, hey, man, that's all you can ask when they have their starting quarterback and we got our bag up. So ought to be nice.
Yeah, Bengals were on a 9-game December winning streak until this past weekend against Pittsburgh. Longest in the league, 9 straight in December, 11 out of 12. Longest stretch in streak in franchise history as well. Okay, start another one back up again and do what you do best. Don't be, okay, I'm going to flinch because they're doing this, or, oh man, now I got to react to what. No, let them react to you.
That's right.
Let them counter punch. Don't you be counter puncher. You be knockout puncher, man.
That's right. It's true. I think that, the Bengals, they play in my opinion, the most physical division in football. Yep. So they have the advantage of understanding that this is how we have to play. Unfortunately, what we've seen is that they've played games this year where they just did not match the physicality of the other team. Solomon and I talked about that the other day. Cleveland game, the Houston game, the Tennessee game. These are teams that they got the snot knocked out of them. And I think that what we've seen is that when they've played like that, they seem to have played better the following week. They seem to respond. And there's no doubt that they're going to look at after they look at this tape, they know that they got the snot knocked out of them. It wasn't a good outing. They got out physical in a bad way, a lot like they got out physical against Cleveland, Houston, and Tennessee. So hopefully that gives them this idea that, hey, let's get back to playing that pounding football. Let's get back to being physical and see if Kansas City wants to play like that, because Kansas City's not a physical team. They're not the team that lines up and say, we're just going to manhandle people. So here's an opportunity to play against a team that you should be more physical than. And if you can get them in that physical match, maybe that's how you win this game this week. But it'll be a good opportunity to see how they respond. I'm always interested to see how players respond after they have a rough outing, because you know how football is, Dave. Either you're gonna go up or you're gonna go down. From an emotional standpoint, from a physical standpoint, and they have young players. They might play like DJ Turner and Battle. These guys, played this many games in their lives in the season. I mean, they're going on week 16, week 17, and as far as playing, and it's long, and so they got to dig down and reach down and see if they can finish the season out. And they should be thinking about, how can I finish strong to come back next year, so when I come back, they know that I'm coming back and I'm gonna be ready to play football. Here's an opportunity.
I do know one thing: if it goes well in Kansas City and the Bengals get it done, the first two people that I'm calling, if I'm on the Bengals coaching staff, is Marvin Lewis and Mike Zimmer, and say, how did you screw Flacco up so badly? Joe Flacco could not do a thing against the Bengals, man. He threw twice as many touchdowns as he did or interceptions as he did touchdowns here in Cincinnati.
Yes, he did.
I mean, they had him. They had his number.
Flacco,
yeah. It was amazing. And but that dude, how about him, E.T.? What is he, 38, 39 years old, and still have the arm he has? It's crazy.
Quarterbacks, this, Dave. I mean, Kenny Anderson can still throw the football. And when I say can he throw it like an NFL quarterback out there? No, he can't. But if you grab a football and throw it to Kenny and say, "Give me a wing of that," he's gonna let go a pretty pass. Boomer, I guarantee you, can still throw the football. So here's a guy who wasn't really he wanted to retire, but he wasn't really ready to retire. I saw an interview with Ryan Clark. Ryan Clark said he saw Flacco this summer. He said he was talking like he wants to continue to play. He didn't want to retire. And when that happens, here it is, an opportunity. He's with a good franchise that understands. He's got a good coach that understands quarterback play. And he said, look, you come in here, I can give you some things that's going to get you caught up quickly, and I can give you some things that's going to allow you to go out there and be successful. And I tell you what, one thing he hasn't lost is that arm. And if you remember, Solomon and I were talking about the game and the playoff game against the Ravens, or against the who were they playing? The Broncos. Solomon was calling that game that night. He said, E.T. I remember after the game happened, we talked after the game. He said, I went to school in Boulder. He said, and there for all 4 years, never had a day as cold as it was that day. He said, E.T., if you remember when that dude let that ball go, I don't know what they call the pass. He threw it deep, 50, 60, 70, 60 yards in 30 mile an hour wind, and it was probably 0 degrees. You remember that play? I mean, when you get a guy that can throw that kind of pass, that was no fluke. And so that this guy's arm is still live. He can still throw it. I mean, they're doing this, and they really have thought of the same situation we had. They've lost a lot of players to injury. Offensive line, they lost a quarterback. They lost a running back. They've gone through the same thing we've gone through. Only thing they didn't lose all their defense. And we've lost quite a bit on defense. But the Browns are doing the same thing, going through the same thing that the Bengals are going through. They're just responding differently. Now, that helps when you go get a veteran guy who's sort of been in the fire. Joe Flacco, I don't think anything bothers him about getting thrown into the fire. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I don't know if he's got Hall of Fame numbers, but he's a good player. And so big kudos to the Browns, man, because who'd have thought that getting Joe Flacco was going to pay dividends like it is right now? It's quite impressive, I can tell you that.
It really is. Well, the Bengals have they've given themselves no margin for error, E.T. I mean, they got to go out and got to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, and then knock off the Cleveland Browns, get the first division win. How about being 0-5 in the division, 8-2 against everybody else? What's going on?
Amazing. I just totally don't understand that. But I think too, what we know is that before the season started, you looked at the division. Everyone sort of assumed that there was going to be the Steelers that were going to be in last place.
Yeah.
Based on the quarterbacks. Everyone thought we'd be one or two, Ravens be behind us, Cleveland be third, and Steelers would be last. And you think about football, man, and this defense, this division is so rough. Think that here it is, 2 weeks left in the season, we're almost being swept in the division. But think about it. Even when we were really good the last 2 years, the best we got was 3-3 in the division. So
We have
it's
4-2, 4-2, and 3-3.
4-2, then 3-3. So
Yeah.
What in this division, if you're going to do anything outside the division, you got to at least go 500 within the division. You got to get 3-3 and get out and say, hey man, we had some good battles with those teams, but it's phenomenal that they haven't won a division game yet. But based on how the season sort of shook down, it doesn't seem unlikely that it will be there.
Right.
Lamar Jackson, he's been healthy for the most part this season. Knew that was going to be a rough outing. The Cleveland game was an outlier. Who thought that, even though Joe Burrow was injured, they were going to play like that. Probably one of the worst games they played all season.
Right.
You think about the first Pittsburgh game for a couple weeks ago. I mean, it's Brownie's first start. Defense didn't show up, didn't help him out. Turnover in that game. So it's just been a funky season per se, division wise. This team's got to learn from this year and say, look, we got to learn that football is football. Our quarterback may go down the first week next year. What are we going to do? We're going to bag it, or we're going to play. We may lose a lot more guys early in the season next year. What do we do? Do we bag it? They've been very fortunate, Dave, as you know. The last 2 years, excluding this year, they've been fairly healthy. Fairly healthy at the key positions. I thought last year when they lost to Wusier was big. They didn't have anyone to replace him at that time. Eli Apple was not going to get it done. We knew that. So this year and going forward, once they get guys back next year, how do we go about building our depth so we know that when the injuries happen, that we can plug and play and we can keep going on. It looked like they had that, but we knew. I think you're sort of playing with fool's gold a little bit when you're talking about young players getting in there and filling in. It's a hard league for young players to get adjusted to. Just think that they'll go out and perform at a high level when they're just going to get thrust into the fire is unlikely. You can see some promise. You can see some guys that develop a little bit, but to think they're going to be able to go out there and play like veterans when it gets tight in the season, it's not likely. So next year, I think that they can come back next year, try to see if they can fill some of the spots. They got to fill the defensive tackle spot with DJ Reed. He's not going to be back next year, not early in the year at least. I think DJ Turner's going to be a good corner. I think he needs more work, needs more teaching. As bad as it was this year for him, because he had some really, really bad games, he can learn from every one of those things. I think that Battle's going to come back much better next year in his sophomore year. Dax Hill's got to turn it up. He's a guy who's got the most experience back there per se. Less Mike Hilton. He's got to play much, much better next year. It's going to be a contract year for him, I believe. So, I think that I typically guys contract years they show up and play well. So, but that I think the linebackers. Did you see that play the other day when that running back for the Steelers can't let up in that hole, that little running back and laid Jermaine Pratt on his back?
Warren decleated him.
That can't happen. I mean, he's a running back. He's not even a fullback. He's just a little running back. For them come there and lay Pratt down.
Yeah.
Man, that right there again, it set the tone for the physicality of the game that the Steelers are going to play with. And what should have happened, Pratt should have mowed him down, and then that would have given the defense something to say, look, this is what we're out here to do. And so these kind of things are going to have to be looked at and examined. What can we do to find a way to get better? And it's going to take a lot of thought. It's going to take really evaluating all these players and seeing what these players are about. Are they committed? Is it a player that we can possibly give a new contract to because he's deserved it? He's played that way. So they got a lot of questions to answer, a lot of questions to field, and even more importantly, the offense. I mean, the offensive line's got to get better. We can't. I mean, Joe Burrow likes 5 guys out. We can't leave a tight end to block for him. So they have to. I think from a coaching standpoint, schematically, Zach's going to have to examine what is he doing with Joe Burrow? What is he doing with Joe? What's the next step? I talked to Solomon. We talk football all the time, as you know, Lap. And one of the things we thought that, how does the Bengals offense evolve? It's one thing to say that the last 2 years things have gone fairly well, but that you can't come back and do the same things you did the last 2 years because teams aren't going to let you do those things. And so what we saw this year, I don't think we saw Zach Taylor get this offense and twist it and evolve it. Some of that was not his doing because you had a quarterback who was gimpy, couldn't do some things early on. But I think that even as he got healthier, we didn't see them start doing things that help Joe Burrow take this offense to the next level or take it to another place where teams weren't familiar with it. So offensively, they got to go back and do that. They got to go out and get another receiver that's got some juice. You can't have Jamar Chase as your only guy who's capable of getting deep on people. It doesn't work because if he's the only one, teams aren't going to let Jamar Chase get deep. And this year, I mean, more than any other year, they really protected over the top with Jamar Chase. Yep. And so who do we get in the draft? Who we sign as a free agent that comes in and gives us a little more pop at the wide receiver position? That's not to down Charlie Jones or Trent Irwin, but these guys are guys that are going to help you on special teams, and they're going to help you with a play here, play there. If you think those are the guys that's going to go out there and make your plays every week and get you where you need to be, not going to happen. So Joe the rookie from Princeton, good player. But they got to go back and sort of evaluate everything, Dave, and say, where can we get better in terms of getting more explosive players? Where can we get better in terms of getting players that can go out there and play more consistently for us week in and week out? Because I think that I don't have an issue with the coaching staff. I think the coaching staff's good. I was one of Zach Taylor's biggest critics when he got here. I thought he was terrible those first 2 years. But I can honestly say, seeing what he did with this team when things weren't right, and you had to find ways to make things happen, he's done a really, really good job, and I got to give him credit for that.
ET, good stuff as always, man. Really appreciate it. You know your football. Love talking football with you. Covered a lot of ground here, man. Hopefully the Bengals be able to get back on a 2-game winning streak in the month of December and continue it into the playoffs. We'll see. Keep fingers and toes crossed, I guess. My
toes do cross.
Do they? I like it. Well, cross them up, big man.
I will, brother. I appreciate you, Lapham.
Appreciate you. You're the best.
All right, dog.
Happy New Year.
You too.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team. Opportunity knocking.